Hey everyone, I'm Zaptie, and I don't really see a point in giving any further ado, so let's just get right into it.
Okay, last time we took a trip back to 2017 and discussed many of the allegations that were raised against the YouTuber Zaptie. What we found was the two most damning allegations raised against Ed had been debunked by the Hot Wet Soup podcast members and our only accuser, Heather, which normally would be considered a job well done. However, we are literally 2.5 years late, and unlike most of the other stories that we talk about on this channel, this one doesn't have a happy ending. This story is the conclusion of the first cancelled YouTuber, Zaptie.
But still, niggas creeping. They gon' find you, gonna catch you sleeping. Oh, so stay woke. Niggas creeping. Now don't you close your eyes.
Alright, it's gone on long enough at this point. Apparently simply walking away isn't enough. Owning the mistakes you made and accepting that your friends would rather not stay friends isn't enough. I don't blame any of them for that, but a lot of you, maybe not from this subreddit, but in general, have made it clear that I don't get to just leave.
So picking up right where we left off, this concluded the 2017 portion of the allegations raised towards Zaptie. What we haven't talked about yet was how Ed felt about these allegations, and that's what we intend to do here. Over the span of about 4 months, Ed gave 3 different distinct statements across both Twitter and on his Reddit. The first of which came directly after the Hot Wet Soup podcast, where Zaptie argues that people were giving the Hot Wet Soup crew too much shit essentially, and that they were just reporting on the actions he had done. It's important to note here that the allegation of soliciting nudes from underage girls wouldn't have surfaced for 2 more days. However, he was convinced after speaking to everyone involved that this was in no way a backstab. He ends it off by saying that you should come to your own conclusions, which echoes something, ironically enough, Pro Jared said in his own situation. As we continue explaining these twitlongers, remember the cautious optimism that Zaptie exhibits here. Next up is the second twitlonger that we briefly discussed in part 1, but I'm going to be more in depth here. The first thing we see is Zaptie immediately correct the sociopath narrative and explain how it was a lie and he was actually diagnosed with major depressive disorder. In regards to the girls, he states that he didn't meet any of the girls under the age of 18 in person. However, he believed he did take advantage of a power dynamic in regards to younger girls he had spoken to. He makes an apology for this and goes on to say that he'll be making private apologies to all the other people close to him that he's hurt in the previous weeks. Then Ed states he had already committed social suicide, so he moved on to the logical next step, where he states he had been hospitalized since February 6th. This is just 1 day after the allegations of soliciting nude images from minors were released, and 3 days after his initial twitlonger, where he came off cautiously optimistic. He does, however, say he's going through therapy for some sort of major issues in his life, and he didn't even specify what those were. In the leaked audio, Alex stated that Ed did get this help. Funny enough, I never saw a tweet congratulating him or anything of the sort on Alex's public social media, only on this private live stream.
Hello everyone, I'm Zaptie, and I went to recently go see Rogue One with my good friend, Bionic Pig.
Hey!
And we're gonna review it drunk.
Cool scene. Ow.
He ended off the twitlonger by apologizing once again and saying that he's going to do his best to fix it, and at the very least, he wants to set things straight with those who were affected. Now, this apology right here is something we haven't seen in a YouTube drama. He blatantly admits he was wrong here, and he's treating his friends like shit. This, by all accounts, was a good apology, and following this reaction from Ed, we wouldn't see another public statement from him on the subject until June 29th, 2017. In this Reddit post, a frustrated Zaptie is called back to make another response from the backlash, and he explains how he recently found out Heather was apparently 13 at the time, which we now know was another lie told to him, when in reality she was probably 14 or 15 during her interactions with Ed. Now he goes on to say this.
So now everyone thinks I wanted to bed a 13-year-old girl. Upon learning that, I spent the night vomiting. I snapped and deleted everything except the channel itself, which only remained up because I thought it was still contracted by Omnia. But it seems that's been disconnected, so it will be down shortly. Probably not a wise decision, but not one I regret.
And then he goes on to state this.
But even if I'd done all that, no one has had any reason to trust me for quite some time. To the best of my knowledge, I know the origin of this info going so public, and I found it fascinating that only one person bothered to actually contact me about it. But I guess I shouldn't be surprised at this point. If something bad about me is said, it's true. I'm a villain now, and I guess I have to accept that.
Which makes sense when you put this in terms of the fact that this started with Ed lying. It's always going to place a layer of doubt on anything Ed says, since he, of course, is a person who was publicly called a sociopath. sociopath. Whether this was true or not, the thought of someone being a sociopath makes it hard for that person to tell the truth and be believed because of the connotation around people who suffer from antisocial personality disorder. He then finishes off with this.
While I'll accept that this is just how things are, I'm taking issue with the extents people are going to violate my privacy just because they want to either harass me or ask me when I'm coming back. I've received several phone calls to my private cell phone number, lesson learned about giving that number to people I called friends, had my private Twitter account posted by an old friend as a joke, which I then had to delete, and even had people dig up and message an account I didn't even realize still existed just to try to either talk to me or tell me I should kill myself. Be angry about me, post about me, I don't care. But contacting me privately to the point that I'm in need of a phone number change is fucking ridiculous, and I guess I expected better. Rich coming from me, but come on guys. I'm not playing the pity card. I was in a shit spot, I already posted about that, but I've gotten considerable help, and I'm working to better myself in every way I can. I've got 2 jobs, I'm moving out of my house shortly, and I'm pursuing other things. YouTube is over. Was talking to a 16-year-old a fucked up thing to do? Yes, won't challenge that. And I would not have stooped to that point no matter how far gone I had been mentally. If you don't believe that, then that's fine. I know YouTube operates under a guilty until proven innocent mindset. I can't really prove myself either way when my choice was to remain silent. So no, there is no Purge Part 3, there is no iZombie video, there is no Films of 2016 video. Zaptie is done. I'm just defeated by and tired of about the whole situation at this point. So think of me what you will. Just don't track down my contact information to tell me about it.
And that's one of the last things the community would hear from Zaptie. This is someone who's gone from cautiously optimistic to completely defeated in the span of a few months. This is a guy who thought if he was upfront about the things he did, people would understand better, and it seems like that wasn't the case. Terrible people like ImAllexx said things like this just to protect their own ass.
Yeah, the best part is that Ed admits everything in his Twitlongers.
Jeez.
Like everything, word for word. And if you watch his Twitlongers, like, it's not his fault, he's a pathological liar.
I see no paragraph here that admits to soliciting nudes from a minor. Why couldn't anyone else have done this research to get this information sooner? So because Ed had been upfront and open about the things he did do, now all of a sudden this means he's guilty across the board? What a great best friend you are, Alex, but what are friends to Alex anyways if this audio is about 3 months after the Hot Wet Soup podcast and Alex is already here sitting with Blues Dank bashing both Pig and Elvis for apparently not wanting to take the situation seriously enough?
Nah, you shouldn't either, because honestly, like, it doesn't help the fact that you're with people that don't particularly want to take it too seriously either, you know?
Yeah, unfortunately, as proven by recent events.
Exactly, so...
Bring back old dead Hot Wet Soup podcast, please.
Everyone loses their minds when it comes to apologies where the creators go, I'm sorry for this, and this. But, however, in this instance, the but never came. He just apologized for the things that he hurt people with, and the rest of the community felt okay with condemning him for every single allegation, regardless of if the evidence was provided or not. And for all his troubles, what did he get? Well, he got his number doxed, he got his social media accounts leaked by his friends, and he had his job contacted to try to get him fired. Following this Reddit post, Zaptie would promptly remove all the videos on his account and leave YouTube willingly. This would be the last we'd hear from Ed until a brief return in November of 2018.
Good thing that never ever happens anymore, where people reboot franchises super quickly when one does kinda poorly. And another good thing is people never come back to YouTube just to split their return video into 2 parts.
Unfortunately, this return was short-lived as the channel was outright deleted in 2019 for reasons previously unknown. The video he uploaded had actually been received well, with the majority of the comments being positive. However, there were still many calling him a pedophile. Until now, it had been a complete mystery why he'd returned just to terminate his entire channel a few months later. It is worth noting that I got in contact with a source that has provided a lot of messages from between him and Ed during this time frame, and while I don't think I'll be making a majority of them public for privacy reasons, I believe the source was credible enough to at least mention it because it is a harmless look into Ed's mindset during this time frame. Apparently, Ed had begun to rebrand his channel as Good Airline Food, and his new video was going to be the first for the channel. It was going to be a channel based off movies, however, when it came down to the actual release of the video, he got doxxed again. And in this example given, he had messaged him a lovely message featuring a full legal name taunting Ed to kill himself. As far as I can tell, that's the mystery solved, why he deleted his channel here and now. It simply comes comes down to being known as a pedophile when he wasn't one, and the constant doxing by people who are still holding a grudge a year later on allegations that were flimsy at best. Once again, please take this with a grain of salt. However, the man has given me some really compelling evidence that he is who he said he is.
Poor move, no doubt, but there's no reason to waste the time defending it. Zaptie is irreparably damaged and can't be fixed. And yeah, Red Kiwi's comparisons. Comment section is below, go for it.
Now, by this point, it should be clear that this whole thing was fundamentally mishandled by the cast of Hot Wet Soup, Deodor Anthony, and ImAllexx. However, it would be disingenuous of me if I didn't present the many questionable or stupid things Zaptie had done leading up to and during the situation that would ultimately contribute to it going off the rails. The first issue that falls on Ed's shoulders was that he covered trending topic videos, and he had recently taken a firm stance on both Lion Maker and Red Kiwis. While I don't think the comparison exists today with the new information that we now know, at the time, Ed was being accused of soliciting nudes from a minor who was even potentially 13 years of age, and it's impossible not to meme his reactions to those situations in this context.
When all this is said and done, the fact remains. Kiwi is a legal adult who sent a picture of his dick to a girl under the age of legal consent. There is no scenario in which this should be considered okay, and there is no scenario in which he should be getting away with this legally, let alone getting away with it with his YouTube career intact, because we know he's very concerned about that. Now, I'm aware of the fact that some of you that may come across this video will be fans of Kiwi and will likely not hear me out before clicking dislike. But for those of you who listened all the way to the end, do you see how wrong this is? How wrong Kiwi has gone about this from the first moment he spoke on it? If not, I don't think anything shy of his imprisonment would convince you.
Clips like this certainly didn't help any street cred Zaptie had left during the drama, but do you know who agrees with me? Zaptie! Because he condemned it and owned up for it on 2 separate occasions. But as a YouTuber, it's especially a terrible idea to be involved with any girls who are underaged at all. It's incredibly easy for situations like this to blow up in your face. In my own experience, I actually keep an adult person present if I ever need to go into a voice chat with anyone below the age of 18, because unfortunately, people lie and people say a lot of things to get what they want. And I wouldn't personally hire someone under the age of 18 for any work on my channel either, because they can't legally own a PayPal account. I'd rather not work with someone underage in general when there are plenty 18 plus artists available, and that's what this girl was, an artist. And while I'm not saying she was going to do any of this stuff specifically, why risk it? Listen, I know people who wouldn't even follow an underage girl on Twitter for this very reason. In regards to their relationship itself, I don't, however, believe the YouTuber to fan power dynamic was as bad as people claim in this specific instance, because Heather basically said there was no power dynamic here. On top of that, they met when he had 600 subscribers. So does this mean Pugnant would be in a position of power? No, of course not. Because no offense to Pugnant, if you didn't know who he was, that's my point. Yeah, he wasn't able to properly verify her age, and as a result, he didn't know that she was lying about it, which I would chalk up to the fact that he was young himself and suddenly famous for just about 3 months. But regardless of this oversight, I would definitely place some of the blame on him for that.
Before I theorise some potential answers, I would like to question particularly ImAllexx's quote on another level. Let's revisit it for a second. I refuse to keep friends who fuck with underage girls. The misleading term underage girls referring to what is essentially the age at which a girl can do porn, rather than being able to legally consent to sex.
We've already told you about how both Danarchy and Tommy C reacted to the Zaptie situation, so I'd like to highlight a few more responses throughout the community and go over the ones that I've heard since my video. Like I said, when Zaptie returned in 2018, he was met with some less than positive reactions, along with a lot of positivity too. But our local Australian village idiot, Hyojin, for example, tweeted this out about how she could get away with murder and be welcomed back to the community with loving arms as long as she uploaded a banger video. Am I right, guys? Judging on how your social blade's flatlining, it seems like you're still waiting on that banger video, right, Squizzy? I saw this tweet that she made under another artist in the community. She made a comment about Zaptie's inclusion in the tweet, and I'd be remiss if I didn't show you the context of what she responded to. Yeah, that's an animated Zaptie asking for a baby to show him his penis. It's pretty funny that the girl who got exposed for drawing Lolly depicting her underage friends was able to say something like this, but apparently Hyojin here thinks that Zaptie needed a steeper punishment, and I'm wondering what that could be. Oh wait, whoa, hold on, wait, Hyojin, it doesn't have to go down like that. Moving right along here, Deodor Anthony actually made a public statement regarding my previous video admitting guilt regarding the Zaptie situation. situation. He said, "Yeah, there's some definite irony. Even before Nick's video dropped today, I'd been feeling guilty about how I personally handled things. I didn't think it was my place to reopen the drama though. In a way, I'm glad that video came out. I'll have a full response soon." He followed that one up with a tweet saying that I presented some mischaracterizations, however, he does accept some of the fault and that he would be taking his time responding. Look, this was an incredibly fair response. 3 years later, I was ready to come out and say, I respect that answer and listen to what the man had to say. However, and this is a pretty big however, I don't even think that tweet lasted on his account for a full 24 hours. That's right. So basically, he admits guilt right here and then immediately unadmitted it by deleting the tweets entirely. I'm not making this up. So instead, I'm going to do what I should have done in the first place, and I'm going to dissect what he's given me. First of all, this sentence right here probably raises every red flag and hits every bell, and I'm gonna read it one more time. I've been feeling guilty about how I personally handled things, but I didn't think it was my place to reopen the drama. Right! So you knew that some of the way you handled this had been less than satisfactory. However, you didn't want to interrupt a hard day at work for Ed at Chipotle to briefly mention that you may have kickstarted the events that led to the man being chased off the internet, harassed, and doxxed. You didn't think it was your place to own up to your mistakes and try to help somebody out who you said sent and received child porn when you haven't been able to provide a lick of credible evidence that points to this being the case. I'll tell you why I'm so confident, Anthony, because you and Alex aren't very bright. See, this goes one of two ways. You either never had any evidence to begin with and Heather had debunked your initial allegation, or you got something that you've been holding in your possession for 2.5 years. Either way, you're the guy who wrongfully accused a man of being a pedophile, or you're the guy who withheld evidence about a guy who was a danger to children and didn't send it to the police. I'm willing to flip that coin, Anthony, because either way, you look like an asshole. So either put up or shut up, because the next place I'm going to start digging is Nick Cash. And believe me, he's very aware of the new developments on my YouTube channel. The ball's in your court, buddy.
People have actually been trying to get his personal info.
Like in a harassment type of way, or?
Yeah. Like, there's even people tweeting at Chipotle because, they're tweeting at his job, telling him they need to get him fired.
One of the guys that gave Zaptie the benefit of the doubt, ironically enough, was Pyrocynical. He's a very respected creator who seems to keep to himself nowadays. However, he was once more active in the community. He basically states that he didn't believe that Zaptie had wronged him in any way, and that he didn't feel the allegations should have gone public the way he did. He went on to say, "There are things he's done that are fucked up, but the tag sociopath is being thrown around way too much. The way I see it, you gotta judge the actions, not a tag. If people remove the term sociopath and judge him like anyone else, there would be loads more clarity. And the way that people latch on to a label is mental. In a way, I feel sorry for both Zaptie and the people he supposedly wronged. This whole situation is real messed up, and it being made public has really opened up the floodgates. Wow, it's almost like Pyro knew what it was like to be falsely accused of being in contact with underage people. And this statement from Pyro is a real eye-opener because it brings up some really great points. Let's remove the allegations that we talked about in part 1, specifically the debunked sociopath allegations and the visibly false pedophile allegations. With those off the table, we come back to full circle. What's left? Well, Zaptie shit-talked Elvis the Alien behind his back. Okay, Zaptie told Pig to move near him, but backstabbed Pig to try to move into the Omnia house and to get with a bunch of bigger YouTubers. Okay, Zaptie started to ignore Bionic Pig after meeting him in real life. Listen, these 3 things are fucked up. Zaptie is a bit of an asshole for doing these things to his friends. But do you know who the first person to own up to that was? Oh right, fucking Zaptie again. The problem with these allegations is that they're clearly examples of issues that never needed to be made public. They're quite obviously fucked up things that could have been handled behind closed doors on a personal level. These are, well, I'm not gonna work with that guy again type of issues. And I guarantee the vast 99% of the audience didn't need to be warned about such deplorable dangers as Zaptie talking shit behind his friend's back, or the dangers of Zaptie moving in without telling Bionic Pig. Both of these are fucked up things that happened to Elvis and Pig respectively, but in the bigger picture, they didn't need to be included at all in a podcast that was apparently existing to warn fans and fellow YouTubers about how dangerous Zaptie is. When I exchanged emails with Bionic Pig, he claimed Ed was a manipulative person because he told Pig in a call with multiple witnesses that he never considered him to be a friend and that Zaptie only used him for views. Once again, hand, this is a terrible thing to do. In a way, you could say that Ed was asking for it in terms of the way he was treating people he associated with, but he didn't deserve what he got. Next up was Zaptie had been kissing up to large YouTubers. Besides being a bottom-of-the-barrel allegation, to that I'd say we'd have to ban half the commentary community if this was outlawed. Don't believe me? Try joining one of those commentary group chats. These kids will worship the ground you walk on if you have over 100,000 subscribers. I've met more social climbers in the community that condemn Zaptie than any other community that I visited. And people have gone and tacked on things when they've run out of arguments like, well, he's lazy, or he cheated on his girlfriend. Like, those are even relevant. Side rant incoming. There's a reason you'll never see me cover a story about a 20-year-old YouTuber cheating on his girlfriend. It's because this kind of thing happens all the fucking time, and it's not considered news. If you don't believe me, try going to college and spend some time at a single college party. It's certainly not the, well, we need to fire up a podcast immediately and tell somebody about this kind of urgency. I simply don't care. If it's something that you care about, then those are certainly points that you could make against Zaptie in your mind, but in my opinion, it really doesn't matter. But I would say the most damning of all is what DeOrio Anthony is claiming from what I said in my last video. And yes, even though I ragged on Anthony, two wrongs don't make a right. If this is true, and I do believe it is, Zaptie would definitely be an asshole in this circumstance. Anthony claims that Ed was rude to him when he pulled his Patreon and was cold to him in the following months. This is just unacceptable to treat Patreons this way. When someone's donating hundreds of dollars to you and then suddenly can't because they left their job and their income won't allow for it, you can't get them in a call and be confrontational and angry. You just look like an asshole and you'll lose the trust of your fan base. That means no more money coming in. And this is probably the worst thing Ed had done, which is all the more funny that this was something that was omitted from the original Hot Wet Soup podcast. Because in one single instance, this was actually handled mostly offline, and many only found out just recently as this wasn't widely known at the time of the allegations. However, like I said above, two wrongs don't make a right, and this does not give Anthony the go-ahead to slander Ed publicly, poison the well around false pedo allegations, and imply very damning things about a man without having the evidence necessary to back it up.
Because it's depressing, and it's consistent. Depressing and consistent that this is an issue. And I feel like people who do this should know there is not a place for them on this site. They just shouldn't be here.
So what the fuck do we got here, ladies and gentlemen? We have DeOrio Anthony, a fan who's upset that he donated too much money to a guy who was a dick to him on Patreon. Then there's Heather, a child who catfished the guy and has essentially walked back her entire original allegation. Next is ImAllexx, a maniac who's gone on a 3-year spree of quadrupling down on false allegations of rape and pedophilia. Funny enough, since this event transpired, whose statements made about Zaptie sounded more like an autobiography rather than a descriptive term about another YouTuber's psychopathy. And we can't forget his two friends, Bionic Pig and Elvis the Alien, who have since disavowed their podcast on him entirely and publicly implied that they were pushed to even make it in the first place. What we are left with here is the most talented guy in the group, who probably should be crossing the 1 million sub threshold right about now, who was instead forced to work multiple jobs somewhere since he dropped out of law school and tried to pursue YouTube as a full-time job. Zaptie is a guy who made some real mistakes, and as a result he was lied about, catfished, and his career was destroyed publicly in a public execution by people he thought were his friends. A situation that, let's not forget, Zaptie admitted put him in the hospital. From rumors circulating, it appears this wasn't the last time Ed would be hospitalized in the next 2.5 years either. I've heard anywhere between 3 and 5 myself, however we'd have to speak to Zaptie to verify that number. On top of being known as a pedophile and cast aside by his friends, he literally wasn't allowed to leave peacefully. The internet vigilantes operating on flimsy evidence would continue fucking with him for over 2 years from the initial allegations raised by Anthony. And finally, when he attempted to return, he came back only to be doxxed again. These people took a shitty situation that could have absolutely been handled privately behind closed doors and blew it up into a firestorm that would ultimately cause Zaptie to be branded as a pedophile.
And accepting that your friends would rather not stay friends isn't enough. I don't blame any of them for that, but a lot of you, maybe not from this subreddit, but in general, have made it clear that I don't get to just leave. So fine. Here's one last huzzah of a post. Half explanation, half bitching. Enjoy.
I don't know. This stuff really disgusts me. If you want my personal opinion of Zaptie, it's pretty simple. The guy was a real dick to his friends, and he owned up for that multiple times through Twitlongers and his Reddit post. Zaptie made mistakes, very glaring ones. He should have verified the ages of all the girls he had been speaking to, especially dealing with girls who were already under the age of 18. A portion of the blame falls on his shoulders, and engaging in these acts made his videos on Red Kiwis and Lion Maker seem hypocritical, even though the things he had done aren't really comparable in my opinion, looking at all the new information that we have received. It's impossible to watch these videos without noticing how ironic they are, but Zaptie knew that too. That's why when he came back, his content was focused on movies and not trending topics. It really makes you think about the other dramas that we've seen this year specifically. Just a hypothetical for you, let's go back to the Slazzo situation. Just before I released my second video with Slazzo in it, and about a day before Kavos released his second video. What if Alex came out and issued a really good apology right before I hit upload? Not an apology like that shit he posted on Twitter, a real one where he said, listen, I jumped the gun on Slazzo. I believed what my friend said at the time, and at first I didn't question it. I have a habit of doing this, and I'm not sure why. I panicked, I doubled down when it was clear that I should have either shut my mouth entirely, or I should have asked Slazzo his side of the story when he was at my house. My bad, I'll do better. Seeing that, would I personally let my video go up anyways and proceed to bash Alex? For those of you who made a video in the following days, would you have done it? That's the conundrum we find ourselves in when we talk about Zaptie, because I think he's the first fucking YouTuber to ever go, listen, I don't want the drama, I was a real asshole and I'm sorry. Then when it came out that he was catfished on top of all this bullshit, he just left the internet willingly. No, we need to stop Zaptie videos, nothing. He deleted all his shit and went on with his life because the mere thought of something like that, whether it was intentional or not, is fucking disgusting. But my question remains, do you put the cancel culture guns down when the person admits they were wrong and apologizes? Or do you do what people like Hyojin do and bash him a year later, call being catfished getting away with murder, only to have a meltdown when you yourself get called out for loads of things years later that include drawing images depicting minors in sexual acts? Food for thought. You know, this shit's so common that another YouTuber named Cole Carrigan made rape allegations publicly once again without going to the police. This is in the time frame between me releasing part 1 and part 2. That's insane how common this is getting. We don't even know how that one's gonna end yet. However, it's already tainted by an unreliable YouTuber making the allegations on the victim's behalf. If I have one thing to leave the audience with, it's that these things need to go to the cops. If you do it right, the media will pick up your story, and by the time you sit down to make that video and tell everybody, odds are people will already know. If more evidence on Zaptie that I honestly believe doesn't exist surfaces, the first thing I'll say is, why didn't you call the cops? And the next thing I'll do is make an update video here on this channel. I think Zaptie should be given a second chance based on the new information that we have discussed here and in my last video. And if he doesn't want to take that chance, we shouldn't make him, because whether he does come back or he doesn't come back, one thing is certain. I'm asking everybody here to leave this fucking guy alone. He's had to deal with asshole fans and vigilantes harassing and doxing him for stuff that was never even proven publicly. I think the guy's really earned some fucking peace and quiet if he chooses to have it.
I could have pointed out that this coming so late should illustrate that absolutely no one knew that she lied about her age. I could have shown all of our texts and proven that she confessed that she was 16 and not 17 and never said anything else about her age, but I just didn't.
What have I become? My sweetest friends, everyone I know goes away in the end, and you could have it all. My empire of dirt, and I'll let you down. I will make you hurt.
There's even people tweeting at Chipotle because
That's so messed up.
Yeah, they're tweeting at his job, telling him they need to get him fired.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Before we start this, this video had a much different impact on me than I anticipated, and I wanted to send a message out to Ed and an apology as well. I remember fighting for you and trying to get to the bottom of this, because when I heard the Hot Wet Soup episode, it just made absolutely no sense to me. It was completely nuts. And then I was sort of derailed when this came out, which the evidence wasn't available at the time, and I was kind of being pigeonholed into supporting somebody who sends nudes to underage kids, and of course that doesn't look as true as it did back in 2017. I have a certain amount of certain apologies to make to you specifically. When you didn't fight back and there didn't seem to be much recourse, I just fell back into what I usually do, and I only save the pedo jokes for the people who deserve it the most, and that's pedos. And Zaptie, I'm so terribly sorry. I hope we get this right. I hope this makes up for it.